Hello, everyone. I am Doron Spielman, and this is the live daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office. Today is June 10, 2024, day 248 of the October 7th war. Please start submitting questions through whichever platform you are watching, X, Instagram, and YouTube, and I will do my best to answer some of them at the end. More facts continue to come out about Israel's heroic hostage rescue operation on Saturday. And as more facts come out, more warped opinions are coming out too. The enemies of Israel have been struggling to come up with ways to condemn Israel for rescuing its own people, who were held hostage for 8 months in private residences in Gaza. Right now, their main line of argument is to ask how the reportedly high number of casualties in Gaza can justify rescuing only 4 people. Sadly, this is being echoed by major news networks and newspapers as well. This is a question that can only be asked out of ignorance. First of all, the reports on the number of casualties in Gaza are always laid at Hamas's doorstep. Hamas lies about their numbers all the time. Everyone knows Hamas is lying all the time, and Hamas never says how many Hamas fighters were killed. Just 1 month ago, the UN dropped by half the number of women and children in Gaza that it had been reporting as killed. Even the UN realized that Hamas was lying. This is the truth about the hostage rescue operation. Hamas shot at the hostages as they tried to escape. Hamas attacked the rescue force. The rescue force was at risk of being trapped in a hostile area surrounded by enemy forces who were firing AK-47s and RPGs. Only then did the IDF respond. Those who condemn the rescue operation apparently think that the Israeli rescue force should have let Hamas execute everyone, or let Hamas take more hostages instead of returning fire. People who think this way have a distorted view of reality and lack a basic sense of right and wrong. Can you imagine any hostage rescue force asking for permission before returning fire against terrorists? The IDF defended themselves and brought our hostages home. It was their natural, moral, and legal right to do so. The people of Israel will not leave anyone behind. BBC News anchor Helena Humphrey wins the prize for the most puzzling question asked. A day after the hostage rescue operation, she interviewed former IDF Lieutenant Colonel spokesman Jonathan Conricus. They were speaking about the casualties in Gaza when she asked him, would there have been a warning to those civilians for them to get out in time? Conricus calmly answered, we cannot expect Israel to warn ahead of time, ahead of a raid, civilians, because then what the terrorists would do is to kill the hostages. And that, of course, would defeat the purpose. It turns out that common sense is unfortunately not so common. I'm sure that most people know that Israel did the right thing by rescuing its citizens. I wish that the world's most important news organizations would understand that too. There's another thing that we learned since our daily briefing yesterday. 3 of the 4 hostages who were rescued were being held at the home of a man named Abdallah al-Jamal. Abdallah al-Jamal was a Hamas terrorist. However, he told the world that he was something else. He told the world that he was a journalist. He published numerous articles on a news site called Palestine Chronicle, while at the same time he was holding hostages in his home with his family. Al-Jamal was the Gaza correspondent for the Palestine Chronicle, which is a US-based 501c3 nonprofit organization. People who support them get a US tax deduction. You can't make this up. A few years ago, Al-Jamal published an opinion piece on the Al Jazeera website. Al Jazeera recently published a statement distancing itself from Al-Jamal. Even Al Jazeera knows it's a bad look for them. Al-Jamal was previously a spokesperson for the Hamas-run Ministry of Labor in Gaza. He was 100% Hamas. He was killed in the Israeli rescue operation. However, I am sure that we will find him on the list of casualties as a civilian. Finally, an update on the situation in northern Israel. This morning, Hezbollah in Lebanon fired a guided anti-tank missile into a house in the Israeli community of Yaron. Just 2 hours ago, sirens went off all across northern Israel, warning of suicide drone infiltrations. Israel has been under attack from Hezbollah since October 8th, when Hezbollah joined the war that Hamas started just the day before. Almost every day, Hezbollah is firing rockets, shooting anti-tank missiles, and sending suicide drones into Israel. 60,000 Israelis have been displaced from their homes as a result of this threat. I just read an article in CNN that said that Israel and Hezbollah are ramping up cross-border attacks, as if each side is equally guilty here. The article did not mention that Hezbollah made a choice to join the war, and that the war that Hamas started. And the article said nothing about the fact that Lebanon, a sovereign country, refuses to do anything to take back control of its territory from a terrorist army. It's important to tell the truth about the situation. That's what I'm doing as a citizen spokesperson, and I'm hoping that everyone watching will do the same. We would expect that everyone, including every world leader, would speak up against Hezbollah's attacks and demand that it back off from the border before Israel is forced into a major war to push it away. Hezbollah must back off, or it will be backed off. I will now be happy to take some questions.
Two related questions that come to us on Instagram Live. The United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken is due to visit shortly. What does Israel expect from this visit? And Jonah asks on Instagram Live, how have the United States aided in returning their own citizens?
Israel looks to the United States as, of course, our greatest friend in the world. We have an alliance that goes back many years to the founding of the State of Israel. And we would hope that when Secretary of State Blinken comes to Israel, that it would be in order to pressure Hamas to reach immediately to accept the terms of the hostage deal and to enable us to do two things. The first is to bring all of our hostages home. And the second is to achieve the obvious reality of the absolute destruction of Hamas. Israel cannot live with Hamas on its border. Just like no one out there would want to live with the terrorists on its border, we can't live with the terrorists on our border either. Regarding what they are doing for American hostages, I hear rumors in the press, probably like many people, that there is a rumor that the U.S. is going to negotiate directly with Hamas for the return of U.S. hostages back to the United States. I think the question that all of us need to be asking ourselves, Hamas isn't going to do this for free. What would Hamas ask the United States in return? From our perspective, there is nothing to give Hamas except ultimately to destroy their terror organization and provide safety and security for the residents of Israel.
You mentioned the 3 Israeli hostages who were being held in a family home in Gaza. Marilyn on Instagram Live asks, where was Noah Argamani being held?
Marilyn, thank you for asking. Noah Argamani was also being held in the home of civilians in Gaza. She reports that she was being held in this home. She was living in a room by herself under constant watch. The family would then open the door and order her to go clean up their food, go wash their dishes. And they treated her essentially as a servant living in the home. And that's where she was living, in a home of civilians, wealthy civilians in Gaza, which calls into question the entire lack of aid. Apparently, it is reaching families that are friends of Hamas in Gaza. That's where she was being held. And therefore, when we hear about civilian casualties, who are these civilians? Are the civilians that are holding Noah Argaman as a hostage, keeping her in captivity? If they are killed as part of an IDF rescue operation, are those civilians? Is that what you would expect of the civilians living in your own country? I think not. That is just one more clue in pulling the veil off of Hamas's rhetoric about civilian casualties.
This question comes from Nir on our Instagram Live. Is there a plan to bring back the refugees back home to Kiryat Shmona and other places in the north?
There is without a question, Nir, that is something the state of Israel has committed to. Can you imagine any country, the United States, if it was being attacked by Mexico theoretically, and people from Texas had to flee inland, not going back to their homes? Of course not. Or any other country around the world. Israel will not stand by and allow our own land, our own state, and our own country to be held hostage by Hezbollah's constant cross-border attacks. These are 60,000 people. They work in tourism, they are farmers, and they have children and families. Like any nation in the world, we will absolutely ensure not only that they go back home, but they go back home and they can put their children to sleep at night knowing that they are safe. This is a national imperative, and I, as an Israeli, all of the other people I know feel this as a personal imperative. We will not stop this war until this is achieved.
Our last question today is a popular one in our DMs. Many people are asking, what books are you reading? Can you recommend a book to read?
So the most interesting book actually that I picked up recently is called 18 Days of War. It is about the Yom Kippur War. Highly, highly recommended reading. What is shocking about this book, which was written way before October 7th, is that it parallels so carefully what we are facing today in Israel post October 7th. The parallels of how Israel was caught off guard during the Yom Kippur War and during the October 7th War are very, very startling, as well as the national response and the national ethos coming together to stand up and face our enemies and protect our country. Highly, highly recommended reading. I want to thank all of you for joining me on the Israeli Citizens Network. We are here every single day providing you with a daily briefing. I encourage you to log on to our live briefings and after live the recordings on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. We are here for you. We are giving you the daily messages, and we hope that you are going to be echoing these messages and the truth around the world.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Debunks signing off.